Welcome to the Work the System podcast, where we help entrepreneurs make more and work less using systems. And I'm your host, Josh Fonger. And today we've got a special guest. We have Ross Kimbarowski. Ross is founder and CEO of Crowdspring. Crowdspring is one of the world's leading marketplaces for crowdsourced logo design, web design, graphic design, product design, and naming services. Crowdspring gives agencies, SMBs, and nonprofits access to 210,000 plus talented designers around the world. All right, Ross. So before we get into crowdsourced design and why branding is so important to growing your business, why don't you give us the backstory and tell us how you got into this line of work?
Sure. I was an attorney for 13 years. And among other things, in 2006, when legal websites started becoming more important, I led the effort, mid-sized firm, about 250 people in Chicago, to redesign our website. And so this is a fairly big firm. We had a big budget. I went through this very confusing RFP, request for proposal process, interviewed vendors, hired the best one. A couple of months later, they came back with designs and I hated them. And it was very frustrating for me, as it is for a lot of business owners, when they hire somebody to do the work and the work is just not acceptable. And so I went home frustrated, embarrassed, and thought there's got to be a better way to buy design services, because we buy everything else differently. We walk into a store, we see television sets, we buy the one we like, we buy the jacket that we like. And so that led to some research and thinking, and turned into Crowdspring. We wanted to turn that model upside down. Rather than hiring a freelancer who will prospectively create this work for you, you post your requirements, and on Crowdspring, people create actual designs. So if you're looking for a new logo for a business, you'll be looking at dozens of logos for your business, and you pick the one you love. It's the process that we're all familiar with in the natural world. It's something that's not been done with services historically, but we thought it would work really well particularly for small businesses, and it really has. We've been in business for 11 years.
Wow, 11 years. So what has been the biggest change? Maybe there's been multiple changes over 11 years, because this is a competitive marketplace. So what have you learned along the way?
Well, one of the most important changes, not just for us, but for our clients, for small businesses in the US and around the world, is the importance of design and branding. It used to be, so if you look at 100 years ago, you had local shops. Nobody had to worry about competitors 10 miles away. 10, 15 years ago, the internet was still not as strong as it is today, so competition was much less. You weren't competing with as many people. Today, you are competing, even if you're a local business, you're a plumber, you're an electrician, you're a small real estate agency, you're competing with a lot of other people. And consumers have become more sophisticated. They go online to find your business. They look for various visual things that help them understand whether you have a sophisticated professional brand. And so today, first of all, you can't afford not to have an online presence if you're a small business. You can't afford not to invest in your brand identity. So brand identity for a business is everything visual about the brand. It's your logo, it's your website, it's your business cards, your marketing materials. People used to think, I'm just a plumber, I'm just an electrician, I don't really need business cards, I don't really need a good website. The truth is, today, that's no longer the case. Those people have either gone out of business or are struggling to figure out why they haven't grown their business as much as everybody else. And it's the same for us. I mean, we've had to up our game in creating a much better looking, easier functioning product. And so we've redesigned multiple times through that 11-year period, completely rebuilding our entire product 3 times now.
Wow. So part of it is not just to sit back and hope that things get better, but always be redesigning. Well, I've got kind of a personal question now. So let's say I'm the CEO, owner of a business, and I know I want to upgrade my design. I know that it needs a facelift, but I know that if I start picking out the designs that I like, I might pick the wrong ones. I might steer the business the wrong direction due to my bad choices in design. So maybe your company doesn't help with this. So what if there's 10 good designs? How does the owner or the buyer pick the best design? What if they're bad at picking?
So we actually do help with this because when I started out, I was an attorney. I had some aesthetic taste, but not great visual aesthetic taste. And so today that's very different. I've learned a lot over the past 11 years, but I was like the person you're describing. And one of the things we did from the very beginning is we let every single person who posts a project launch a free focus group. And a focus group is effectively your ability to publicly, so you can post this on Facebook, on Twitter, anywhere you want, send it through email, or privately, sharing it with just a few people, pick the designs that you want other people to comment on. So if you're working with a team, you can let your team comment. If you want your prospective customers to be involved in that decision, you can share it with them and they can score and they could provide feedback. And we give you full control over how to weigh those votes, whether they could see the feedback or not, whether they can provide narrative feedback or just score the entries. So we include a focus group in every project, and many of our project types include unlimited focus groups. So we've had clients post 5, 6, 7, 10 focus groups. Prospective customers, one focus group, my team, a second focus group, maybe advisors or family members, a third, to keep those things separate. That's how we do it too. So when we post projects, and we eat our own dog food, we post a lot of projects in our own marketplace. So we recently redesigned our homepage, and illustrations for that came from our own community. When we ran that project, we ran a focus group, and actually a few, but one of our focus group was to all of the people whose design aesthetic taste I respect a great deal, because we wanted that feedback. So we know that not every business owner is going to be able to do it. We make it really easy for you to ask people that can help.
Yeah, I really like this. That's cool. So another unique situation, because you mentioned how your company is scaled. You've got 210 plus thousand people who are willing to do designs for you. How did you make the decision to go with outsourced freelancers to scale your team, as opposed to just having in-house core designers who you really know?
So first of all, the question about who you know versus outsourcing is really a question of quality. In other words, if you can control for quality, if you can get great quality from a global community, there's not much advantage to having an in-house team. It's the conversation we often have with small agencies who want to provide design services to clients, for example, but can't afford to hire designers. Use Crowdspring as an outsourcing arm to do the design work. When we looked at it, ultimately, we said, if we can maintain a high level of quality for clients, we don't need to hire designers. More importantly, we knew we couldn't scale. So we have clients in 100 countries today. We have 220 plus thousand designers and namers in 195 countries. We built a pretty sophisticated reputation system from the time that we launched that measures the quality of the work. And that system is modified once a day. So it reflects what people are doing. And that allows us to essentially ensure that the quality is at a high level. Plus, remember, the model is completely different from the way you're used to. If you go to a site that lets you hire a freelancer, or if you hire an agency, what happens is you pay them a sum of money, and then you wait, and they deliver 2, maybe 3 variations for you. On Crowdspring, first of all, we've cut that sum of money by a factor of 10 to 50. So for a logo design, for example, logo projects start at $299, including all fees. That's a huge difference. Wow. But more importantly, you're not getting 2 or 3 designs. You're getting 50, 60 designs, meaning even if some don't meet your quality standards, many do, and you're picking your favorite. Plus, to make sure that this is never an issue, we guarantee your satisfaction. It's a simple guarantee in design projects. If you don't like anything, you get all of your money back, including our fees. We can offer that guarantee because we feel strong that we have a high quality community and we can deliver results. And over the 11 years, we have very few clients that remain unsatisfied at the end of a project.
Wow. So in terms of keeping the quality score high, can you give us a little bit more information about how you do that? I mean, is it just ratings by the buyers, or how do you prove the quality is high? Or do you vet the designers before they even enter your marketplace, or do the designers just get weeded out because no one buys their designs after a few months?
So we both vet, and we have a proprietary algorithm that looks at the work that's being done on Crowdspring.
Mm-hmm.
We never used to that. So until 2017, anybody who wanted to come in could come in and work on Crowdspring. And the thinking was, we're going to democratize the system and let people enter. And if they weren't good, they were ultimately going to stop doing the work. That was true. The problem is it created some friction because clients who were posting projects, yes, they saw a lot of entries, but some of the designs were just not up to our standards. And so we introduced qualifications. And today, and for the last 3 years, we actually qualify every single designer in every single subcategory. So it's not like we qualify generally and they can participate in 30 different. So if they want to participate in logo projects, they have to separately qualify in that, separately qualify in web, separately in product design. We actually went back and requalified every single designer on Crowdspring. So we didn't allow a single person to participate unless they went through this qualification process. And so the second thing that we do is we look at everything that happens on our site, how clients rate their designs, how they do in, whenever they win a project, how they do in wrap-ups. Are they hired for individual one-to-one projects? Because clients can hire them in individual projects too, not just these crowdsourcing projects. And so we take a lot of those factors into account and build a sophisticated algorithm on a scale of 0 to 100. And so clients know that if they're dealing with a high-level reputation creative, they're going to get good work. And then we do a third thing. We actually offer 2 categories of projects, elite projects and platinum projects that are higher priced. So in some categories, for example, an elite project might be $799. You get to work with 5 of our best designers. So it's not an unlimited project where you work with dozens. You work with 5, but they're our best. And for the designers, it's a great deal because one of them gets the award and the other 4 actually get paid tips, guaranteed tips. So they want to produce their best effort. And then we have a platinum category where you work with an unlimited number of designers, but only those that have a reputation of 80 or above, meaning you get the highest quality designers working in your project. So when we work with more sophisticated companies, so bigger, we work with Amazon, with Microsoft, with LG, Barilla. When we work with agencies, when we work with small businesses who've gotten past the 0 to 10 employees and now they're 15, 20, and they're looking for much, much higher quality work, those companies tend to post platinum or elite projects because they want to work with the best of the best designers.
How do you keep your prices so low? I mean, I've got to assume these, like, probably none of the designers are in the US then, right? I mean, because it's not a whole lot of money there for a logo design.
So first of all, half of our designers are in the US.
Really?
And the other half is scattered across 194 other countries.
Uh-huh.
So how do we keep prices low? First of all, if you think about competition in the design industry, you have freelancers. You're either at the very, very low end. So Fiverr is a good example. $5, $10 for design. You're not getting custom design on one of these template sites. You're getting a generic template that 1,000 other businesses use.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want your business to quickly get lost and customers to forget you, generic templates are your solution. And at the other extreme, you have very expensive agencies that'll charge you, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 for a brand identity. Small businesses can't afford that extreme. Freelancers will often charge in the thousands, so $1,000 to $10,000 for a brand identity, your logo.
Mm-hmm.
We had this idea that designers all over the world don't have the same access to clients that designers may living in Manhattan or living in Chicago or living in Phoenix. So there may be a designer living in North Dakota who's exceptionally good, but just they happen to live in a small market and can't reach clients. There may be a designer living in Spain, in Malaysia, in Africa. And so the idea was, what if we can give those designers an opportunity to win clients through a different model, which is what we're doing. So they compete. It's a competition to win the client. And in almost every part of the world, including Europe and the US, the awards are perfectly acceptable to them. They know what the award is. We're very transparent that this is what they're going to get if they win. In some of our projects, I mentioned earlier, elite projects where there's a winner and everybody else gets paid. There's a true incentive to do your best work. Mm-hmm. And some of these projects are higher value. So product design is an example. We do a lot of product design. Mm-hmm. And we work with companies like Philips and LG to design mobile phones, to design irons, various kinds of devices. Those projects typically are in the 1 to 3,000 range. Now, that's a much higher word to the designer, but if you look at what the competitive price for you to go to a product design agency, you're talking about spending $50,000 to $150,000. So a product designer who is experienced but doesn't have access to a ton of big clients can get a ton of experience working with great brands, still make thousands of dollars. And ultimately, we're paying out millions of dollars a year to designers around the world and in the US.
That's interesting. So let's get to the small business owner who's got, let's just say, 10 less employees, and maybe their cousin designed their website, and they've taken some stock photos and they've kind of played around with a few things, maybe gotten something off Fiverr. What should they, when do they know it's time to actually go to the next level? And how do they know if it's even hurting them yet? Because you mentioned that it hurts you to have bad design. How do you know? Because people want ROI, so they've got only a few things they can invest in as a small business owner. How do they know when it's the right time to invest in design branding?
Well, first of all, the right time to invest in design as branding is when you start.
Okay.
Because if you think about what is a brand identity, so your brand identity is everything visual about your brand. So it's your logo, it's your marketing materials, your website. And when you start your company, you are trying to communicate what your company is about to your customers. And the thing that most people don't realize about brand and brand identity is your brand identity isn't what you say it is. It's actually what your customers think it is. And I'll give you a good example that, just about everybody who's had broadband service from Comcast can identify with. They're one of the national players in the internet broadband space and in television, of course. They have a terrible reputation for customer service and for all the problems with their networks. And despite their efforts to talk about how well they do, they have a support account on Twitter that tries to be really hard, it's still a terrible reputation. And so here's a big company with tons of money spending a lot on branding who can't overcome the public perception. For a small business, for the people that have 1 employee, 5 employees, 10 employees, that's even more critical. So if you already have a business and you're wondering, is my design good enough? One quick way to check is to look at your competitors. So take a look at the competitors who are either regionally close to you, or if you have a strictly online business, the people that you think you compete with. How is their web presence? Do they have a visually interesting site? What functionality do they offer that you don't? Are they present on various social networks? And is their presence just occasionally posting something, or have they taken some effort to create a visual statement on these networks? Because one mistake we see business owners make is they'll get a logo and then they'll essentially ignore everything else. They'll ignore a web presence. A lot of businesses, only about 65% of small businesses have a website. Still, this is 2019, and we still have a lot of businesses that don't. And the ones that have a website fundamentally will often have a really visually poor website and one that doesn't perform for them. So look at your competitors, take a look and ask your customers, because the first thing that you and I do, and I bet every one of your listeners, when they think about a new service or a new product, is you find the company online. You go to their website, and when we can't find their website, it's a red flag for us. Why don't they have a website where I can get that information? Are they not a professional company? Are they tiny? And we often will have to look elsewhere. So maybe somebody's only on Yelp. And the problem there is you don't control the information on these third-party sites. So if you're a service contractor and there's some bad reviews about you, you're asking your customers to go to a site that includes bad reviews about you. It's a terrible way to do business.
So I'm going to ask you kind of an entrepreneurship question now. So you're in this space. It's a dynamic space, online business. You've seen a lot of changes. What is going to keep you on top for the next 10 years? Because you've made it 10 years already. What do you do as an entrepreneur, as a leader, to stay above the competition, stay beyond the competition? Is there anything that you do, system you have in place for that?
So we do, and this is something we've done from the very beginning. And 2 things. First of all, with my leadership team, we quarterly meet and talk about strategy for the next quarter. So we think in really 3 to 6 month increments. We rarely think much beyond that. It's really tough for companies, particularly small companies, to make decisions that are 1 year out, 2 years out. Big companies have to do that, particularly public companies, because they're public facing. They have to make some disclosures to potential investors. But small companies really can't do that effectively. So we think in small increments. But the one thing that we do, and we've done for 11 years that has helped us, is about once a year, we ask the question, if we wanted to compete with ourselves, so if we wanted to leave and start a business to compete with ourselves, what would we do? And that's a very different question than the one you ask about what can we improve in our own business. Because the compete with ourselves business forces you to look at what things would you stop doing immediately, literally immediately, because they're not adding any value to your business. Second thing you have to ask is, does your business have to look like it does right now? I mean, you have a blank slate. You can do anything you want when you're starting a new business. How would you do it differently? And the beauty of that exercise, and as I said, we do it once a year, and the last time we did it with a major change was in 2017, where we asked that question and then completely rebuilt 100% of everything we do. Recoded, redesigned, changed all of our marketing campaigns. We actually changed the vast majority of our team in that process. The beauty of that exercise is that you are just focusing on what you do, on what you can do better, rather than getting fixated about what your competitors are doing, because it's really challenging to always look over your shoulder at competitors or look ahead to your competitors to mimic what they do. You can't necessarily get the same results from what they're getting, and you can't necessarily execute in the same way. So much better to look at your own business, which is what we do, and compete with yourself.
I like that. So you kind of disrupt your own business by trying to be your own biggest competitor, at least mentally at first. It's a great exercise. I like that question. I wrote it down. So if we want to compete with ourselves today, what will we do? That's cool. Very good. Well, I know the time is running short here, Ross. So what's one question I should have asked you, but I haven't yet, that you want to make sure to leave the audience with?
So ultimately, one of the most important things for small businesses is to take design and branding seriously. And really, I've talked with thousands of small business owners over the years, and I talk probably with thousands every year. A lot of them want to improve, don't know where to start. And part of the biggest challenge is price, which is one of the things we've worked on. And the second challenge is the question you asked earlier is, how will they know whether something is good or not? And so one of the biggest, I think, questions business owners need to ask is, what step can I take tomorrow? So there's a lot of planning involved in a lot of this stuff. And the reason most people don't take action is they just are afraid. There are too many things they need to do. So we like to think of it as incremental steps. What small step can I take tomorrow to improve the branding and visual design for my business? Because we think that it's impossible to grow a business today without good visual design. You can look at any small company that's competing with you. You can look at big companies, and we're seeing rebrands from the biggest startups like Uber and Airbnb. Some of the oldest companies in the world, like DuPont, are rebranding. They know this is important. So the biggest takeaway from this for a small business is, what can I do tomorrow to take a small step to improve my brand identity? Not so much how can I rebrand everything that I do and change everything, because that could be expensive ultimately and time consuming. But what small step can I take? Because without taking those small steps, you never get to a point where you can appreciate how well designed can help you.
Well, I got one more follow-up question to that now. So let's say for the business owner who's had a design, let's just say they designed everything 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Where do they start? Because you said take small steps. You got your logo, you've got your, the headers and footers of your hard copy mail, you've got your brochures, you have business cards, you have the color for your website, the font. Where do you start? If you say take small steps, I'm just kind of curious about that.
So first of all, if you last designed your brand identity 10 years ago, you're way overdue for a redesign. I mean, just plainly speaking, ultimately, few designs are truly timeless, where you can just maintain that same design and not worry about it. You have, companies like Apple who are regularly tweaking their website design and tweaking their brand. And these are the cream of the crop when it comes to visual design. So if you last rebranded 10 years ago, the first thing you should do is wipe the slate clean and say, what can I do better? But really your question is, where do you start? And the best place to start is with your logo. Okay. Obviously some companies will need to rename because they may have named their company, Jason's Lampshades, but you're not selling lampshades today. You're selling iPhones and you're selling computers and other things, and customers are confused. But once you have a name you're comfortable with and a web presence, the best place to start is your logo, because that sets the tone for everything else. And we've rebranded 3 times for our own logo. It's changed through the years. And if you think about it, what's a logo? It's a symbolic piece of artwork that represents a business. And it has to do 4 things. It has to embody your brand. And so for a business that's 10 years old, it probably does not any longer. Mm-hmm. It has to be instantly recognizable. So if it's if it was created in the days when 3D design was popular, and it's hard to show, might not be the right approach. It has to be versatile, meaning you got to be able to put it in a small business card and on a big billboard. And this is a problem for a lot of logos that are a decade old. And it has to be timeless, or as timeless as you can make it. I'll give you a good example. Coca-Cola has almost never changed its logo. If you look at a Coca-Cola bottle from 1930, it's going to look the same over the years. Pepsi continually changes their logo, and it goes through this upheaval. Part of the reason they continue to do that is because they're number 2, and so they're trying to catch up. So if you get a really good, interesting, timeless design, IBM is another good example. It hasn't changed for a long time. You can keep going for a long time. But for small businesses, this is tough. We started with something that looked a little bit amateurish. We went to something that looked much better. We went to something that looks much more modern. And that communicates to your audience that, hey, you're living in 2019, even if you're an electrician providing services to your customers, even if you're a dry cleaner providing services to your customers, you recognize it's 2019. Your business doesn't look like it was stuck in 1960.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think with the, and I always think in terms of ROI, if you're going to spend, let's just say, you said $200, let's just say you spend $1,000 on a design and the product that you sell is $500 or $500 profit. All you have to do is sell 2 more of that particular product in the next year to pay for itself. And chances are a good design is going to help you sell a lot more than that. So it'll easily pay for itself. Now,
yeah, I can give you, one stat that's true of the public market, which shows you how important design is. If you look at public companies, the metrics that I've seen say that public companies who have good design, who have aesthetically good design, are valued at 2x those companies that don't. So you're talking about huge companies that have tons of customers. And so when you translate that down to a small business, small businesses that are truly good and create a strong brand identity with a niche audience stand out. I mean, when you're comparing companies, I know when I'm hiring a contractor to do something in my home and I have 2 or 3 choices, of course I'm going to look at recommendations. But when I go to their websites, when I look at their logos, when I look at their websites, if it looks like it was designed by their 7-year-old or by them and it's just not professional, I'm going to feel that this person probably isn't going to do great work. When I see a well-designed site, when I see it answering those kinds of questions, when I see a high-quality logo, doesn't mean they're the best electrician or plumber in the world, but it does mean that they take those things seriously, that they want to present a good professional image. And I expect that when they come up to my door, they're going to be in a truck that has a good, branded skin on it. They're going to be efficient. They're going to be professional. They're going to have the right tools. And typically, when you invest in design and you take those things seriously, you also invest in other parts of your business. And so it shows to customers pretty clearly that you take your business seriously and you value your customer.
Very good. All right, Ross. Well, where can people find you if they want more information?
So we're at crowdspring.com, crowdspring.com. We've got an award-winning blog, crowdspring.com/blog, where we write about tons of these issues. So marketing, branding for small businesses, lots of growth ideas. Happy to have people come take a look.
Good. All right, Ross.
If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at rosskimborofsky.com. Common spelling.
Okay, Ross. Well, this has been very helpful to me. I'm taking a lot of notes myself. I think design is something that we here at Work the System are looking at doing soon, a redesign. So this has been really helpful to me. Hopefully to everyone listening as well. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll be having another podcast episode with someone like Ross, who's got a business expert who can help you with your business, or one of my past guests, or maybe just me by myself explaining how you can make more, work less. And if you want to watch these things live on Facebook, make sure to like our page, follow our page, and then you'll know when these things pop up when they go live. And if you want a copy of that book behind me, Sam Carpenter's best-selling book, Work the System, signed by him, leave us a review, leave us a comment, leave us something at one of the pages that you're watching this, either on Facebook or YouTube or on iTunes or anywhere else. Let us know what your big takeaway was or review, and send that to info@workthesystem.com. Once a week, we'll be taking one of those reviews and mailing out a copy of the book. All right, everybody, stay tuned to next week, and we'll see you then.